just going to wait for a few people to join for the workshop. And the first time we're experimenting live streaming this on Twitter and YouTube, and soon LinkedIn. So yeah, interested to see if anyone tunes in. Just wait a few more minutes for people to join the Zoom as well. Cool, we're just going to wait 1 or 2 more minutes. Okay, I'll just wait 1 more minute, then we can get started. Okay, we're just going to wait 1 minute and then we'll get started. Okay, cool. So hi, everyone. Today, we are going to do a testing and CI for GenAI workshop. And I'm going to show you how you can provision your own virtual machine using what we call our Launchpad system that will, for free, provision you with your private Helix deployment for testing purposes. And yeah, and then we're going to go ahead and create some apps. We are going to create a Comedian app. We're going to demonstrate RAG with knowledge using a PDF, a PowerPoint presentation in this case. And we're going to show you how you can integrate with APIs as well. Yeah, I will try and present this and give everyone time to follow along as we go. And if you have any questions as we go through this, then please go to our Discord or the MLOps community Slack. We're on the Helix channel in the MLOps community Slack, and we're on we have our own Discord server called the Helix Discord server. The links are in this document. I think the first thing to do is, if you haven't already, go to this link, bit.ly/testing GenAI. Let me see if I can put that in here. It's the first time I've used this live streaming software, so oh yeah, look, I can put a QR code on there. Okay, cool. So that QR code has the links to the docs, or you can just type in bit.ly/testing GenAI. And I will also put that link into the chat, which is there. Hopefully that's clickable. Looks like it is. So yeah, step one is load up that document in your browser. Or you can just watch along at home and kind of treat this as a tutorial. So what we're going to do is step one. We are going to grab ourselves an instance. So you can go to deploy.helix.ml. I'll show you the experience if you're logged out. So this is a system that we built to allow you to provision your own Helix deployment on a VM that we'll give you for a week or two for free. So what you can do is you can go in and sign up for an account. I'm going to log in with my Helix account, but you can log in using any Google account, or you can register for a separate account and then verify your email address. So yeah, now that we're inside the Launchpad, we're going to use this to provision a dedicated virtual machine just for you that you can muck around with and do whatever you like with within reason. So yeah, let's start by creating a deployment. I'm going to call my deployment Luke Workshop, and I'm going to click Create. And then what you should find is that you very quickly get provisioned a Helix deployment, because what we've done is we've pre-warmed a bunch of virtual machines. So you can hit this button to create, and within a few seconds, you should get a working Helix deployment up and running on a VM that we provisioned for you. So you should see something like this. And then this deployment with its sort of IP address encoded in the URL will be dedicated to you. And then what you can do is, from that deployment, you can, if you're interested in poking around on kind of what's going on the inside, you can click Open Terminal, and then you'll actually get a root shell inside the VM, and you can do things like Docker PS, and you can see that we've got the latest version of Helix 1.4.12 up and running on this virtual machine. So what can you do now that you've got a Helix deployment? The first thing you can do, the first thing you need to do is you need to register for a new account on the Helix deployment. That's because this deployment has its own dedicated Keycloak deployment, Keycloak server running on that VM. And Keycloak is a system for users and groups and integration with like enterprise systems like Active Directory and LDAP and so on, or OAuth or Okta or whatever you want to plug it into for users and management, like access management. So the first thing you'll need to do is hit login and register. And then this is creating a new account inside that Helix deployment, inside that new virtual machine that you've just registered. So we're going to go ahead and register a new account. And I'll just pop my details in here. And you should do the same on your own Helix deployment. If you've just joined us on the live stream, I see we've got a few new people showed up on the live stream. You can follow along with this workshop at this URL, so bit.ly/testing-GenAI, and the QR code for that is in the top left-hand corner of the stream. So hopefully, or you can just type it in. Okay, so So there we go. Now we're logged in. So let's see. I mean, what's kind of the first thing that you can do with your Helix deployment? Um, so I noticed some more people are joining the Zoom as well. So I'm going to paste the link again, and feel free to follow along this document. So what's the first thing you can do once you've got your own private GenAI deployment here? Well, for one thing, you can ask it to compose an email explaining why your project's going to be late. That's a funny little prompt. And you can see that that's going to instantly go ahead and give you a sort of chat GPT like experience. So if you're looking for like a version of ChatGPT that you can run locally on your own infrastructure so that you can use it with kind of private company data rather than sending all your data to OpenAI or Anthropic, you can do that with Helix. And the nice thing about that is that you can do it all with open source models. In fact, all of the models that you can get from olama.com, like the latest Llama 3.3 from Meta and Phi from Microsoft and Mistral from the Mistral people, Gemma 2 from Google. All of these nice models run out of the box on Helix. And then we have all of this kind of infrastructure around the LLM for building up and building out GenAI applications and then testing them, which is what this workshop is all about. So I'll show you that in a moment. But yeah, so step one is just kind of make sure that you can go to this document, grab yourself an instance from the Launchpad. So go in here, put anything like your name in the deployment name and click create, and that will spin up your own dedicated Helix deployment running on a VM that we're providing you here. So yeah, that's kind of part one of the workshop, is just kind of getting set up, getting your own deployment, and then just demonstrating that you can get this sort of chat GPT like experience. You can say, tell me a joke. And it always tells me the same joke for some reason. And you can see that this works. You can share this session with people on the internet, and then they can access it and so on and so forth. So that's fine, and that's kind of like your own private chat GPT. But where it gets much more interesting is this next sort of section here, which is once you've gone through, is setting up your own GenAI apps. And at Helix, the whole kind of ethos that we have is that these GenAI apps should be defined as configuration rather than code. Because what we're hearing from our customers is that it's really important to them to avoid this thing that people are afraid of, which is kind of like RAG application sprawl, for example. So if you've got like lots of different teams in your company, all working on RAG applications or something like that, what you really don't want is for all of those teams to end up implementing that RAG in a different way and then having to secure all of those RAG systems that have been built differently. So instead, by using Helix, rather than every team writing their own code, they can just write their own configuration. And that configuration can then be managed centrally and secured centrally as well, which turns out is really important for big companies. So let's go ahead and set up some apps. So there's kind of two ways of building apps in Helix. The first one is through the web interface, and the second one is through this kind of version-controlled YAML file. So I'll start by showing you the web interface because it's more accessible. It's kind of easy to use. So if we go into set up a new application in here, what we can do, there's two ways of getting to the apps list. The first one is to, on the home page, click the AI-powered apps button, and then you get a list of your apps and you can go and create a new one. Or you can also access your apps, through this little ... menu. So that's kind of a quick way to get to the app list from anywhere, or you can just go to the home page and then click on the pink apps button here. And so we can go ahead and create a very simple app. To begin with, I'm going to make a comedian. And you always have to click save in our UI before you go and add any other integrations. So we're going to go and create a comedian. And let's see, what does this advise? So we're going to use the prompt, you are funny. And then we're going to hit save. And then we can say, hey, to the comedian. And okay, so I don't know if the comedian's being that funny. The problem I have with this comedian is that I actually want the comedian to tell me a joke every time I talk to it. But at the moment, it's not doing that. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a test. This is where the testing for GenAI comes in. We're going to write a test that asserts, just like you would write a test for software, we're going to write a test that asserts that you should, that every time you interact with the comedian, it should tell you a joke. And I can also kind of give you a sneak peek of the YAML format that we have for this application. And so if you go into the developers tab inside our app editor, and you can expand that, and you can see that this is the YAML format that's defined for that we've configured by clicking buttons in the web interface. So the idea is that you can prototype applications easily in the web interface, but then you can also do like software engineering and DevOps best practices, which is to version control that application and deploy it as part of a declarative pipeline. And so we can kind of extract this YAML and then add tests to the same YAML spec and then run those tests automatically in a CI pipeline. So that's what I'm going to show you, and you can follow along using the Launchpad, where you can provision your own VM. So that's fine. That's kind of the first thing you can do, is you can just create apps with prompts, which I guess you can also call like instructions, which is like tell the app what to do, how should it behave, what should it avoid doing, and so on. The second more interesting thing that you can do with the Helix app is that you can go and create a new app, and I'm going to call this a Helix presentation, because what we're going to do is we're going to go and download a PDF, and then we're going to feed that into the app to give the app some specific knowledge. So in this case, it's a PowerPoint presentation I made, but you could also do any documents, any PDFs, any Word documents, any Markdown files, and you can include all of those. So in order to follow along at home, you need to go through these steps. So the first thing is you need to download this file. I just uploaded this to Google Drive. So if you click this link, hopefully it's accessible to everyone. This is just a presentation about our company. You can click the download button. And if Google is feeling like it, yes, then I can download the PDF. And then so I've made a new application, and you can go ahead and make a new application. You can also use your own documents for this. You can create a new app. I'm going to call this the Helix presentation app. And then I'm going to go into the knowledge tab, and here you can add knowledge sources. So I'm going to add a knowledge source, and it's going to be a knowledge source of type files. Actually, I will just check. Yeah, so these instructions have been recently updated because we made it easier to add files like this. So I'm going to call this pres for presentation. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload some files. Hopefully I don't leak any sensitive information by sharing my screen. And then I'm going to hit save. And as soon as you hit save here, you'll notice that this knowledge source starts indexing. So of course, any private GenAI stack wouldn't be complete without a vector database and all of the integration that you need to take documents, chunk them down into chunks, and then insert those chunks into a vector database. And so that's exactly what this has done. Kind of automatically behind the scenes, we've taken this 10 megabyte PDF and we've turned it into markdown chunks. And then you can toggle this little button here to search that vector database. And so we can say founders, for example, and here, yeah, we've got the list of people who started the company. And so we can say, tell me about the founders of Helix. Hopefully that, well, I don't know, probably it gives us, yeah, that looks like the right chunk. That was the one. So by toggling this button, you kind of see what's going on under the hood, which is that we're actually searching the vector database that we populated by dragging these files in here. But we can toggle it back just to like chat mode, and then you can say, send me a link, and yes, it describes the people involved in the business. Or the people who started the business. So that's pretty cool. Like we went from a PowerPoint presentation to a chatbot in like 1 minute. Excuse me. So that's cool. But then we also like note that we have this version controlled YAML that allows us to keep track of all the settings. We might change the chunk sizes for the RAG settings and so on while we're tweaking this to make it perform better. And so yeah, we're going to go ahead and we can version control this and add tests for it. But again, I'll come back to that in a minute. And for anyone who's joined the live stream, you can follow along with everything I'm showing you using the QR code in the top left of the screen, or this doc is accessible via bit.ly/testing-GenAI. And we will get to the testing part soon, I promise. I'm just showing the kind of 3 different types of apps that we can test. So this third type of app is actually my favorite. It's how you can integrate, you can use Helix to integrate an open source large language model with an external API. So any API that has like a open API spec, also known as a Swagger spec. I like calling them Swagger specs because open API and open AI are very similar words, and it can get quite confusing, and I often just say the wrong one by mistake. So I call them Swagger specs. But basically, if you've got a Swagger spec for your API, then you can plug an LLM into it and have the LLM make API calls on behalf of the user. And this is actually pretty cool. We've got a bunch of examples of that. For example, we've got a Jira integration. So if you use Jira, then you can ask it at questions like, what's the current sprint, or generate code for this ticket number, and so on. So if you're interested in that, the link is github.com/helixml/helix-jira. But I'll show you a simpler example than the Jira integration for the purposes of this. So far we've made a comedian, we've made something that can do RAG over a PDF, and the third example we're going to do is called exchange rates, and unsurprisingly, it integrates with an exchange rates API. So yeah, if you make a new app inside your Helix deployment, you type in exchange rates, then save the app. Make sure you save it before you do anything else. Then you can go to the integrations tab, and the integrations tab allows you to connect that application to API. We call them API tools because it's kind of like giving the language model a tool, which is the ability to call this API. So you can add an API tool, and then what we've done is we've added a few example schemas. And so we're just going to use the first example schema here, which is an exchange rates API that we can call. And you can see it's got this Swagger spec kind of built into it. You can replace this with your own Swagger spec for your own APIs, and with just a little bit of engineering work, therefore kind of integrate chatbots or natural language interfaces with any API that you have in your business. So we can hit save here, and now we've got a chatbot that can look up exchange rates. So I can say, what is the current USD to GBP, like pound sterling exchange rate? And I can hit send. And it will literally very quickly go and make an API call. And it looks like $1 is currently worth 82 pence, which is live information. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. Like in a few seconds there, we integrated an application. We integrated a large language model, in this case, the open source Llama 3.18b from Meta, with an external API. So those are the three kind of things you can do. I can go and chat to this app, and I can share it. Well, actually, I can go in and share it here with other users. I can mark it as global, for example, and that means that everyone who's logged into this Helix deployment will see that app in that deployment's app store. So if we go in here now, we can see featured apps, includes the exchange rates app, and then that will be visible to everyone inside who has a login for this Helix deployment. So you can lock down that Helix deployment to only be accessible to users in your business by configuring the Keycloak deployment that comes along with it, and then you can share that internally in the business, or you can make it public. Let's talk about testing. But we're 28 minutes into the conversation, and we haven't done any testing of GenAI yet. So let's hurry up and get on with it. So this is where we're going to get a little bit more technical. So we are currently, we've shown how we can do things just by clicking and pointing, or pointing and clicking. So we've showed how you can provision your own Helix deployment using the Launchpad tool by clicking a button here. You can then launch the UI to log into it. And then inside there, we can then prototype these GenAI applications and kind of build these YAML specs as we go, which we can see here. But in order to get a bit more technical and actually start testing these applications, we need to install the Helix CLI. So the Helix CLI is available for Windows, Linux, and Mac. What we need to do there in order, well, and there's a sample repo with a bunch of example YAMLs in it as well, which is this testing GenAI repo. So feel free to load that up. There's a bunch of kind of interesting examples in there. So what you can do there is, and that gives you some explanation of the things you can do with it in the README. But yeah, let's go ahead and install the CLI so that we can interact with Helix from the command line. So I am going to go to the account and API page, and you can do the same in your own Helix deployment where you registered for a user account. It will have given you an API key. And then I'm going to use my shiny new Ghosty terminal from Mr. Hashimoto. I think that's his name. And then I'm going to install the CLI, and you can do that just by copy pasting this one command. So you can see there that is going to install the latest Helix CLI only on your machine. By the way, you can also use this installer to install all of Helix on your own Mac or on a Linux machine. And if you're interested in doing that, then you can go to our docs. So there you can go to Helix docs, you can go to private deployment, and you can go to install quick start, and you can follow along the instructions there. That's an alternative to using the free virtual machine that we're giving away through the Launchpad. So yeah, let's go ahead and install the CLI. That's going to download the CLI from GitHub, and then I can do Helix version. And you can see I've got the latest version that we just released like an hour ago. If I do helix app ls, well, it's going to tell me I need to set my API key, which is fair enough. And I do that by copy pasting the export commands from there. And then, yes, I can do helix app ls. And it's a lot like the Docker or Kubernetes CLI, if you're familiar with those. We're trying to make it feel quite familiar to people who use those sorts of CLIs regularly. And we can go and see the apps that are in that system. If you're using Windows, then what you can do is there's some slightly updated instructions in this Google Doc. You just have to click the little expandy icon here, and it will show you how to do this on Windows. And that if you're using WSL2 on Windows, then you can just use the Linux binary. But if you don't have WSL2 installed, then you can also use our native Windows binary for x86 64. And when you do that, then you have to use the PowerShell syntax to set these environment variables. So you kind of have to translate the syntax here to PowerShell syntax. So yeah, hopefully that should be fine. And if you have any issues or questions running the CLI on Windows, then please join our Discord. Or if anyone is interested in chatting about any of this stuff, then please join our Discord. The link is here at the top of the doc, which is bit.ly/helix-discord. Yeah, let's learn about the things we can do with the CLI. So now we've got this nice CLI. The first thing we can do, well, I'm going to clone this Git repo because I like having a Git repo like this. Oops. So I'm going to go into the testing GenAI folder I just checked out. And you can see I've got a bunch of different YAML files in here. So let's have a look at the comedian, like the comedian we created earlier. This is a comedian that tells jokes. I mean, I kind of ruined the surprise here, but let's suppose we just started with that "you are funny" prompt that we had earlier. And then what we've also done in this YAML file is that we have written some tests. Okay, so 34 minutes into the presentation, we finally got onto testing. These tests are a list of natural language assertions about the app that has been created here. So the way that those assertions work is that they prompt the system, which is the LLM plus the integrations or RAG, with a prompt. And then they make a natural language assertion about the output. So we say that the output must be a joke, and it must be an actual joke. And that's kind of nice because we can use natural language, and LLM is going to be evaluating these results. So an LLM will make a reasonable assessment of whether the result from this application is indeed a joke or not. It might not have a brilliant sense of humor, but it should do a reasonable job. So let's start by applying that comedian app. So helix apply -f of comedian will go ahead and deploy that comedian into my deployment. And remember, you can go in here, you can go to the App Store, and there's that comedian that I just applied to the cluster. And here, in memory of one of my favorite comedians, Bill Hicks, we have included his face. It's not nearly as funny as Bill Hicks, though. Although I suppose you could add additional prompting to make it more Bill Hicks-like, and then add tests to assert that. And then, so we can say, hey, what we want is for Bill to tell us a joke every time we interact with him. And currently, it's not doing that. So let's check whether the tests are passing or failing. So remember, actually, just before we run the test, I'm going to remind everyone of what the test is. So the test is that it tells jokes. We prompt the system with hey, and we want a joke to come back, and it must be an actual joke. So we're going to do helix apply -f of comedian. Oh, we've already done that, sorry. I mean helix test -f of comedian. And that's going to go ahead and test the system, and then it's going to write out a report. And as we expected, the test results show that the system failed the first test. And you can see if you look at the session link here, you can actually kind of step into almost like a debugging session for why it failed. And so what we see here is that we said hey, and just like it did when I ran it manually, it just says hey back at you. But the interesting thing is that the automatic assessment of whether or not the test passed or not failed the test because it said this response does not contain an actual joke. It appears to be a casual greeting and an invitation to chat. You can also click this debug button here to kind of dive all the way into kind of the actual LLM call that happened like under the hood. And you can see the original request, which in this case was just hey, that went to the LLM provider. In this case, we're using Together AI, but you can also run Helix on local GPUs, and then we provide the inference backend, so it can be fully private. And then we can see that the request, the transformed request is hey, with the system prompt, you are funny. And then the response in this case is exactly this, like hey back at you. You can also see here, this is how the evaluation actually works. So we're actually just asking another LLM instance. Well, we're asking the same LLM in a new session. Does this response satisfy the expected joke output? And the system prompt for this says you are an AI assistant tasked with evaluating test results. And so it's kind of LLMs all the way down. And here you can see that result is what's then rendered in this report. So, okay, that's kind of a simple example of how you can test LLM-based applications. And of course, you can do all sorts of interesting things with this. So here we've just got a single test, but you can write multiple tests and you can put in different input and make assertions about the output in all of those different cases. So let's see. What should we do next? The next thing in the list here, oh yeah, we want to actually make the test pass. So let's see. This is kind of the first challenge, is to figure out kind of how to update the prompting. Like this is prompt engineering now. Let's figure out how to update the prompting so that you can, so that we can make the comedian tell a joke on every interaction. So what you can do is you can go into the comedian file, and then you can modify the system prompt and then run the tests again. So the nice idea here is that you can iterate on your application locally, run the tests locally, and then if you want to, you can only when you get the tests passing, then you can push them to your branch. Excuse me. Or of course, you can push a failing test to a branch and then another commit that shows that it's passing, which is something that people like doing when they're doing test-driven development. So this is kind of like how you can do test-driven development for GenAI. So yeah, this how are we going to make this test pass? Well, if I show you the get diff, then I can reveal the secret that we saw earlier, which is that if you make it tell a joke, if you tell it to tell a joke on every interaction and only tell a joke and nothing else, like this, I can do git reset or git checkout comedian, I think will we'll revert this back to that state where it tells a joke on every interaction. Then we can do helix test-f on comedian.yaml, and let's see if that passes this time. So if we go in here, yay, it passes. Okay. And I always think it's quite funny how LLMs describe jokes. The response is a well-known joke that meets the expected output. Sometimes it says it matches the format of a joke, which is a setup and a punchline, things like this. So that's cool. We can iterate on these tests. I'm now going to show you how you can integrate this with a CI system. So whatever CI system you've got, you can integrate it. And what we're going to see here is that works quite well. If we go to GitHub, this is the testing GenAI repo. And I'm pretty sure this is all documented here. Yeah, let's set up GitHub or GitLab to run tests continuously. So helix test is just a CLI command that will return an exit code. So when I test the comedian and it passes, then the exit code is 0. And if I test the comedian and it fails, like for example, with this bad prompt that didn't work, then you can see that it fails with an exit code of 1. And that means you can just put the CLI into your existing CI system. So like we're not trying to do anything fancy here. We're not trying to like build a whole new CI system or anything like that. You should just plug this into like your existing GitHub Actions or GitLab or Jenkins or whatever it is that you're using. And I'll show you kind of how to do that. So what we need to do in particular is we need to go to the account and API, because we're going to need to put the API key and the URL into GitHub Actions. So let's go into this repo here, this testing GenAI one. And what I recommend is that you can fork this repo. So you can fork your own copy of HelixML testing GenAI, and then you can muck around with your fork, and you can set up GitHub Actions on that fork. So for example here, then you can, let's go in and go to secrets and variables for actions. And we've got variables, which is the URL, and we've got secrets. And so I must have set up this GitHub Actions repo on a previous deployment. So I'm going to go in and update. Well, actually, I'll just clear them out. So I'll delete the variable. Oh dear. This is embarrassing. My phone is upstairs, so I'll be back in a second. Found it. Sorry about that. It was one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'll focus better on my work day if I put my phone in a different room. So I'm going to auth to GitHub, and then clear out these API keys. So then we can go in and we can create a secret. So yeah, the way that we need to do that is we can go in here and we can copy paste Helix URL and Helix API key. Now Helix URL needs to be a variable. Because it's not a secret value. So set that to whatever your value is in your own Helix deployment. We need to go and set a secret as well, which is the Helix API key. Okay. So new repository secret, Helix API key, and save that. And so now this repository, which you can fork and then set up your own actions for, will now be able to run this GitHub Actions workflow. And this GitHub Actions workflow assumes that it has these two environment variables, and it will then install the CLI, test the app. In this case, it's testing this exchange rates app. And then if the tests pass, then it will also deploy the app to production using that helix apply-f command. Let's look at this exchange rates app. So there's some tests here for the exchange rates app, and you can see this YAML file has the everything specified in here, and that we've also got some customization for the response templates and so on. So this is kind of a bit of an advanced use case, but what we're going to do here is we can do helix apply-f of the exchange rates app, and then what I'm going to show you is how that works in here. So that's the exchange rates app, and we can type USD GBP, and we can manually check that gives you reasonable results, and it looks like it does. So I'm actually going to break the exchange rates app so that we can then make a pull request that shows you us fixing it, because that's the kind of test-driven development workflow that you might want. You might find, oh no, the main branch has a failing test. Let's fix it. And someone will make a pull request into it that fixes it. So I'm going to go ahead and break this application. And I know a specific way that we can do that. So if we take out, I'm just going to copy these over here so I can easily put them back in. So we're going to say these little bits of prompting, like this. So sorry, just 1 second. I'm noticing some very slight bugs in Ghosty as I'm copy pasting things around. Okay, so if we go ahead and we kind of break the app, we can check whether it's broken by running helix test-f on the exchange rates app locally. That will take a second. Then you get the test results. That's interesting. I mean, I'm not sure why that's not broken. I'll just do I'll break it in a different way. So if I just reset my changes here, then I can go in and I can break the exchange rates app by saying that the way that you summarize the response is to, let's just make it do something really silly. Always just say the word fish, only that, nothing else. Okay, so now that should definitely fail. Yay, I saw an F. Okay, it failed. And that's because we now have an app that whenever you ask it something, it will probably make an API call and then just say the word fish. So that's not very useful. So I'm going to push that to the main branch, which you should never do. You should never push something that you know is broken to the main branch. But this is just for the purposes of demonstration so that I can do that. Sorry, I just need to update my remote. Okay, right, so I've broken main. And what we should now see from a workflow perspective is that we should have the test should be running on the main branch. Okay, nice commit to main. Thanks, Luke. You just pushed a commit to main that broke everything. That's never happened to me before, honest. But we can see here that, yeah, it's running the test and it's checking, and we're seeing straight away that it's failed. And so whatever integration you have with GitHub Actions, maybe it reports the result in Slack or whatever, that will just carry on working now for testing GenAI applications. And yeah, so let's make a pull request that fixes it. So I'm going to make a new branch, which I'm going to call fix no more fish. I don't need to do a commit yet, do I? Because I haven't changed anything, but I will push the branch. And then on the no more fish branch, I'm going to go in and edit the exchange rates app. And I'm going to find the bit where it says to only always say the word fish, which is annoying. And I'm going to put back that thing that we had it doing before, which was presenting the key information in a concise manner and performing any actions requested by the user, which is actually probably going to work a bit better. So before we even commit this, we can run the tests kind of locally, even though they are actually going to be run. The tests are going to be run against an ephemeral instance of the application in the cluster. So I'm just going to type it helix test-f exchange rates. That's on my local version that I haven't even committed yet. And I can run that, get a test results, and that does work. So that's working now. And then I'll actually push that change to the branch, put back the correct prompt. I'm going to go ahead and push that. No more fish. And then we can go and see if GitHub Actions is now happy with that result. We have to actually open a pull request, I think, before GitHub Actions will start running the tests. So that should start any second now. GitHub Actions, yeah, there we go. GitHub Actions can be a bit slow sometimes, but that's fine. You can also run it on GitLab or any other CI system you have. So let's go and look at that test. So it's installing the CLI, it's running the tests. Looks like they passed. And it's even going to make a comment on the pull request. Isn't that fancy? So let's see if we hit refresh. Yeah, okay. So we straight away get a comment posted on the pull request showing that the tests all passed. And you can view the full test report. Hit this button here, and you can see that it's working. It's giving me live results. Yeah, pretty cool. It seems to be working. So what are we going to do now? Well, we're good test-driven development programmers. So let's see. We've got well, I thought we had a failing test on the main branch. Did I not push that? Yeah, that's strange. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong repo. Sorry. There we go. Yes, so we have a failing test on the main branch. You can see that it failed because the response does not mention the required things because, like it's just talking about fish all the time. And then we've got a parsing test in the pull request to put back the correct prompt with a summary. I should have given it a better description, of course. And for some reason, I can't scroll this page. Oh, there we go. Now I can. So now we can hit merge pull request, and that's going to go ahead and merge the change. Oh, and if we're really quick, we should be able to catch it before it deploys it. So let's go and have a look at the exchange rates app and say USD GBP. Oh no, we missed it. It was too quick. It would have actually shown us that. Oh no, it wouldn't have deployed the broken version because the test failed on the main branch. So it didn't actually deploy the broken version to production, which is another really good reason to have tests, is that you should guard your production deployments on your tests failing. But then what we can see is that if it had been broken in production and we merged that change, then the declarative pipeline that ran on the main branch did indeed go ahead and deploy that new application to production. That's the production ID for the application, and that's it. So what we've done, just to recap, is we provisioned our own private GenAI stack by using the deployment system. So we went into the deploy.helix.ml. You can type something in here to create your own deployment, and then you can muck around with SSH in the browser, or you can just click the button to launch the UI. We built 3 different types of GenAI applications in the browser. The first one was just a prompt where we had a comedian that we said, please be funny. We then also uploaded a PDF, which in this case was a PowerPoint presentation, but you can upload any of your own documents by doing that. And just to show that again here, we've got that in this knowledge, where we've got a vector database over that PDF. We then integrated with an exchange rates application with an exchange rates API. We then set up the Helix CLI just by following the instructions under the account and API page. We installed that, we connected to the Helix deployment, and then we were able to start using the CLI to run apply and test subcommands, which deploy a given application to production, and also then allow you to test them using the built-in kind of evals tooling that is part of the AI spec, which is this YAML file format. Then we plug that into GitHub to run those tests continuously, and then we demonstrated a workflow where you can have a failing test on the main branch, deploy that main branch to, you can have a failing test on the main branch, then you can make a pull request with a change in it that fixes that failing test. And you can do all of that using this approach of using version controlled YAML. And then, the example that we used was this exchange rates app, which has customized prompting to make it work well in various different cases. And we demonstrated that if we totally break that application by making it always say the word fish, then we can fix that by merging a pull request with a passing test in it. So yeah, that's the workshop. Thank you so much for coming along. I'm curious to know what people would like to see next. So if you have suggestions, please join our Discord, which is this link, which is also shortened to this link. I think these links are going to be better. Well, I'll just sorry, just putting the shortened link in here. So yeah, join our Discord, bit.ly/Helix Discord, or join the Helix channel on the MLOps community Slack. I'd love to hear your feedback on what you'd like to see next. We are working on a Kubernetes version of this workshop where instead of in this, instead of in the launch pad having everything running in Docker, you would actually get a K3s cluster running on this VM. And then you can do interesting things like integrating with Flux for continuous delivery, and kind of fully embracing that kind of GitOps approach. You can also then treat these AI spec YAMLs as a CRD because we have a Kubernetes Helix operator. So give us a shout if you're interested in a workshop focused on the kind of Kubernetes flavor of this. There's also documentation on the Helix test tool here inside the examples repo, the examples folder inside the Helix repo. So feel free to read the docs. And yeah, also, if you're interested in having a private workshop for your specific, your own use cases, then drop me a note. Please just send me an email, luke@helix.ml. And yeah, thanks for joining in today. Hope everyone found it interesting. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for coming. Bye.